Earth had been sending messages to the stars for more than 200 years. Radio signals carried greetings in every language humans spoke. Mathematical equations proved that intelligent life existed on the third planet from the sun. Pictures and sounds showed what humanity looked like, what they had built, what they dreamed of becoming. The stars never answered back. Most people on Earth believed they were alone in the universe. Scientists debated whether life could exist on distant worlds, but no one had proof. The silence from space seemed to confirm what many feared. Humanity was the only thinking species in a cold, empty galaxy, but humanity was wrong about being alone. Very wrong. The Galactic Council had known about Earth for 12,000 years. Their long-range sensors had detected the planet when humans were still building their first cities. The Council consisted of 43 different species, all working together to maintain peace across thousands of star systems. They had rules about everything, including what to do when they found a new species. Earth was different, though. The Council had marked it with a special symbol in their records. The symbol meant danger. It meant stay away. It meant do not make contact under any circumstances. The strange part was that no one in the Council remembered why Earth had that symbol. The records were ancient, created so long ago that even the oldest species had forgotten the reason. All they knew was that their ancestors had been very serious about avoiding Earth, so the Council followed the old rules. They ignored every signal from Earth. They pretended the planet did not exist. Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Lunar Station Artemis, looking at Earth through the large window. He was 42 years old and had spent half his life in space. His dark hair had started turning gray at the sides. His uniform showed the rank of commander in the United Earth Defense Force. The Defense Force was small. Earth had 3 cruisers, 12 frigates, and about 20 patrol ships. These ships were designed to protect Earth from asteroids and space debris. No one really expected to fight aliens because no one believed aliens existed. Jake watched his planet slowly turn below him. He could see the lights of cities on the night side. Somewhere down there, 8 billion people lived their lives without knowing how small and vulnerable they really were. "Commander, you need to see this right now." The voice came through his radio. It was Lieutenant Amy Parker, one of his best officers. She sounded worried. Jake walked quickly to the sensor room. Amy stood in front of a large display showing the outer parts of the solar system. Strange patterns moved across the screen like ripples on water. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked. "We don't know, sir. These distortions started appearing 6 hours ago. They're not natural. The pattern is too regular, too organized, and they're getting stronger every minute." Jake studied the display. Amy was right. Something was making those ripples in space, and whatever it was big. Could it be a solar storm? Some kind of magnetic phenomenon? No, sir. This is something else entirely. Something we've never seen before. Before Jake could ask another question, the display suddenly filled with new information. Alarms started beeping. Numbers scrolled across screens faster than anyone could read them. A massive energy signature had appeared near Neptune, and then they saw it. A ship emerged from the darkness of space. But calling it a ship seemed wrong. It was more like a floating city made of metal. The vessel stretched 15 kilometers from front to back. Its hull was made of a strange dark material that seemed to swallow light instead of reflecting it. Strange symbols glowed along its surface with a soft blue light. The design looked ancient and powerful, like something from a forgotten age. Weapons covered every surface. Jake counted hundreds of them, maybe thousands. This was not a ship built for exploring. This was a ship built for war. "Oh my God," Amy whispered. "Sir, that thing just appeared out of nowhere. No warning, no energy signature before it showed up. Our sensors didn't detect anything until it was already there." Jake felt his heart beating fast. His mouth was dry. This was the moment that changed everything. Humanity was not alone. The proof was right there on the screen. 15 kilometers of alien technology. Red alert. "Contact Earth Command immediately. Tell them we have a situation." Jake's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "Get me every camera we have pointed at that ship. I want to know everything about it." The warship did nothing for 20 minutes. It just floated in space like a dark cloud. Every sensor on Artemis Station was focused on it. Every telescope, every camera, every piece of equipment that could gather information was recording. Then the ship began to move. It accelerated toward the inner solar system, toward Earth. Something that large should not have been able to move so fast. But it did. The laws of physics seemed to bend around it. Within 3 hours, every government on Earth knew. The news spread like fire. Television stations interrupted their programs. Radio broadcasts carried the announcement in every language. Internet servers crashed from too many people trying to get information at the same time. Humanity was not alone. An alien ship had entered the solar system and it was coming toward Earth. People reacted in different ways. Some were excited, celebrating in the streets. Others were terrified, hiding in their homes. Churches filled with people praying. Scientists argued on television about what it meant. Military forces around the world went on high alert. In space, far from Earth, the Galactic Council was having an emergency meeting. Ambassador Theltok of the Viridian Consensus watched the images from the Sol system with growing fear. He was old, even for his species. His blue skin had faded with age. His 4 eyes could barely focus anymore. But he recognized that ship immediately. "It's a Guardian-class warship," he said quietly. From the old human empire, the chamber became silent. Every ambassador stopped talking. Every species represented in that room knew the stories about the old human empire, even though most of them pretended not to believe them. 20,000 years ago, humans had ruled a huge part of the galaxy. They had conquered thousands of worlds. They had built weapons that could destroy planets. They had created fleets so large they blocked out the stars. The old empire had been the most powerful force in the galaxy, and then they had disappeared. In less than 100 years, the entire empire had vanished. No one knew why. No one knew how. The old empire became a legend, a story that old species told to young ones. Most people thought it was just a myth, but Ambassador Theltok knew better. He had seen the old records, the ones hidden deep in the Council archives. He knew what humans had been capable of, and he knew why Earth had that warning symbol in the Council database. "That's impossible," Counselor Vexnar said. She was young for an ambassador, and her species had only joined the Council 2,000 years ago. "The old empire fell 20,000 years ago. There can't be any survivors." "Apparently we were wrong," Theltok replied. He looked at the image of the warship on the display. "And it's heading directly for Earth." Another ambassador spoke up. "What do we do? That ship could destroy our entire fleet without even slowing down." "We follow protocol," Theltok said. "We send ships to intercept. We try to communicate. And we pray that whoever is on that ship doesn't remember how much they used to hate the Council." The truth was that the Council had good reasons to fear the old empire. Humanity had not been kind to other species during their rule. They had crushed anyone who opposed them. They had taken what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. The Council had risen to power in the vacuum left by humanity's fall. For 12,000 years they had maintained peace by learning from the old empire's mistakes. They had built a society based on cooperation instead of conquest. But now a ship from that old, terrible empire had returned. And it was going home to Earth, where 8 billion humans lived who knew nothing about their species' violent past. Jake Morrison watched the alien warship on his screens and wondered what would happen next. Would they attack? Would they talk? Were they friendly or hostile? He had no way of knowing that the ship was human. He had no idea that his species had once ruled the stars. He could not imagine that 20,000 years of history were about to crash down on Earth like a wave. All he knew was that everything had changed. The old world where Earth was alone and safe was gone forever. A new age was beginning, and no one knew if humanity would survive it. The warship's name was Defiant. For 20,000 years it had hidden in a place between normal space and something else. The ship's stealth systems were so advanced that they bent reality itself. Nothing could find it. Nothing could detect it. It had waited in the darkness for a signal that should have come 19,973 years ago. Inside the ship, Captain Helen Cross opened her eyes for the first time in 200 centuries. The stasis pod made a hissing sound as it opened. Helen stumbled forward. Her legs remembered how to walk, but her mind was still catching up. She felt confused and cold. Around her, 200 other pods were opening. 200 other people were waking up after sleeping for longer than human civilization had existed on Earth. "Status report," Helen said. Her voice sounded rough and strange. She had not spoken in 20,000 years. The ship's computer answered immediately. It had named itself Oracle during the long, lonely time when everyone was asleep. Welcome back, Captain. All main systems are working. Crew revival is 98% successful. 2 crew members did not survive stasis. Location is Sol System, Outer Region. Current date is year 20,412 by Old Empire calendar. Helen felt sick. 20,000 years. They had been asleep for 20,000 years. That was impossible. The stasis pods were only supposed to keep them safe for a few decades at most. Where is the fleet? Where is command? Why didn't anyone wake us up? Unknown, Captain. All communication channels are silent. The deep space relay network is not working. Long-range sensors detect no Imperial signatures anywhere in scan range. A young man appeared next to Helen. Lieutenant Chris Bennett looked tired and confused. He had been 28 years old when they went into stasis. Now he was still 28, but the universe had aged 20,000 years around him. Ma'am, what happened? Why didn't we get the recall signal? Helen walked to the main bridge. Her crew followed her, all of them trying to understand what had happened. The command center looked exactly as they had left it. Weapons were ready. Tactical displays showed the last battle coordinates. They had been hunting something called the Kreth Swarm, a terrible enemy that had threatened to consume the entire galaxy. Oracle, show me Earth. The main screen lit up. Helen saw a blue and green world that looked familiar but also strange. Cities glowed on the dark side of the planet, but they were in the wrong places. Satellites filled the orbit around Earth, but they looked primitive compared to Imperial technology. How many people are on Earth? Helen asked. Approximately 8 billion humans detected on the surface. Technology level is very basic. They have achieved simple spaceflight. They have established a small base on the moon. Their civilization is about 200 years old by Imperial standards. Chris made a low sound of surprise. They started over. The Empire fell and Earth had to start over from the beginning. Helen felt a weight in her chest. She had known this might happen. Every Guardian-class captain carried sealed orders about what to do if the Empire fell. Those orders said that Earth would be hidden and protected until humanity could rise again. Captain, I'm detecting multiple alien vessels entering the system, Oracle said. They appear to be Galactic Council ships. They're sending messages on all frequencies. They want us to identify ourselves and explain what we're doing here. Helen smiled, but there was no happiness in it. The Council? So they're the ones who took over after we fell. Show me their fleet. 20 warships appeared on the tactical display. They were arranged in a defensive pattern between Defiant and Earth. The ships looked modern and sleek, with weapons that would have been considered advanced during the early days of the Old Empire. But they were completely outmatched by Defiant. Ma'am, we could destroy them easily, Chris said, studying the display. Their shields wouldn't last 10 seconds against our main weapons. But we won't do that, Helen said firmly. Those ships are protecting Earth. That makes them our allies, whether they understand that or not. She sat down in the command chair. The responsibility of 20,000 years pressed down on her shoulders. Open a communication channel. Let's introduce ourselves. Ambassador Theltok watched from the bridge of the Council flagship Harmony as the ancient human warship came closer. Every weapon in the fleet was armed and ready. But Theltok had no false hopes. If this came to a fight, the Council fleet would be destroyed in minutes. The power readings from that single ship were greater than their entire fleet combined. Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission, the communications officer said. Audio and visual. It's in standard galactic language. Put it through. A human woman appeared on the screen. She looked young, maybe 40 years old. Her hair was dark and pulled back. Her uniform was black and silver with symbols that no one in the Council had ever seen before. The uniform was older than any civilization in the current galaxy. This is Captain Helen Cross of the Imperial warship Defiant, she said. Her voice was calm and steady. I'm sending our identification codes now. We mean no harm to your fleet or to the people of Earth. We are returning home after a long mission. Theltok felt his translator struggle with some of her words. Imperial. The Old Empire. Captain Cross, I am Ambassador Theltok of the Galactic Council. With respect, your ship has been missing for over 20,000 years. The empire you serve no longer exists. I know that, Ambassador. Helen's face didn't change, but Theltok could see pain in her eyes. We've been reviewing our records. It seems we were in stasis much longer than planned. But our mission hasn't changed. We protect Earth and its people from all threats. Earth is under Council protection, Theltok said carefully. We have kept this world safe for thousands of years. Safe from what? From us, Beltalk admitted. After the Empire fell, the Council decided that humanity should be allowed to grow without interference. We learned from the mistakes of the past. On Lunar Station Artemis, Jake Morrison listened to the conversation with growing shock. The woman on the screen was human, definitely human, but she talked about an empire that had existed when Earth was still in its ancient history. "Sir, we're receiving a second transmission," Amy said. "It's directed at Earth Defense Command. It's encrypted, but we're decoding it now." Jake read the message as it appeared on the screen. "To the people of Earth, we are your children from a future that no longer exists. 20,000 years ago, humanity ruled the stars. We built an empire of thousands of worlds. We achieved things that would seem like magic to you now. Then we fell. We don't know exactly why, but the evidence is clear. Our civilization collapsed, and Earth was hidden away to give humanity a second chance. We return now not as conquerors, but as protectors. The galaxy is more dangerous than you know. You are not ready to face it alone. We offer our protection, our knowledge, and our loyalty. We ask for nothing except the chance to come home." Jake read the message 3 times. His hands were shaking. "Get me a connection to the Secretary General immediately." The next 3 days were chaos. Every nation on Earth wanted answers. Were these people really humans from Earth's past? Could their story be verified? What did they want? Helen provided evidence. She transmitted historical records from Defiant's database, images of old Earth as it had been 20,000 years ago, genetic records proving her crew's ancestry, star maps showing the size of the old empire at its peak. Humanity had once claimed 3,000 worlds and commanded the most powerful military force in the galaxy. And then, in less than a century, it had all disappeared. "We don't know what happened," Helen explained during a video conference with Earth's leaders. "Our mission took us far from home, hunting the Kreth swarm. We were winning. Then all communications from the Empire stopped. When we tried to return, we found only silence. So we did what we were trained to do. We went into stasis and waited for orders that never came. And now," the Secretary General asked, "what happens now?" "Now we face a difficult truth," Helen said. "The Galactic Council put Earth in quarantine for a reason. They're afraid of what humanity might become if we join the galactic community. After reviewing their history, I understand their fear. The old empire wasn't always kind to other species." "Are you saying we shouldn't contact the Council?" Jake asked. He had been invited to join the conference because of his military experience. "I'm saying we need to be careful. The Council has kept peace for 12,000 years by keeping humanity isolated. If we push too hard, we risk war. And Earth cannot fight a galactic war." "But we have you," the Secretary General said. "Your ship alone could destroy their fleet." "Yes," Helen interrupted. "And then what? We become the monsters they always feared?" "No. We offer Earth protection and knowledge, but you must decide how to proceed. You've built a new civilization here without the weight of our mistakes. Don't let us take that from you." The debate continued for days. Helen waited patiently, answering questions, providing information. She understood that Earth's leaders needed time to process everything. In a single week, humanity had learned they were not alone, that they had once ruled the stars, and that something terrible had destroyed their ancestors. It was a lot to accept. Chris found Helen in the observation room, looking at Earth. While Earth's leaders argued about what to do, Helen turned her attention to a mystery that had haunted her since waking up. What had destroyed the old empire? How had the most powerful civilization in the galaxy simply vanished? "Oracle, run a deep scan of the entire solar system," she ordered. "Look for anything unusual. Radiation patterns, energy signatures, anything that might explain what happened here 20,000 years ago." The computer worked quietly for several minutes. Then it spoke. "Captain, I'm detecting faint traces of exotic particles in the outer asteroid belt. The signature matches dimensional weapons. Age of the particles is approximately 19,800 years. Helen felt cold fear run through her body. Dimensional weapons. They were the most destructive technology humanity had ever created. These weapons could erase entire fleets by folding space in on itself. The Empire had banned their use after an accident destroyed an entire star system. "Show me where you found them." The main screen displayed part of the asteroid belt. Colors highlighted the areas with unusual particles. The pattern was clear. A massive battle had happened here. Thousands of ships had fought using weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. "Oracle, expand your search." Look for the same signatures throughout the entire system. The results appeared quickly. They painted a terrible picture. From Mercury all the way to the edge of the solar system, the traces of ancient weapons could be found everywhere. Earth's solar system had been a battlefield. The final battle of the old empire had happened here in humanity's home system. They came here, Helen whispered. Whoever destroyed the empire, they came to Earth. Chris appeared beside her. His face was pale. And we won, or at least we held them off long enough to save the planet. But the cost? Helen pulled up estimates based on the particle traces. The numbers were staggering. Over 15,000 ships destroyed. Millions of people dead. The battle had lasted for days. A new file appeared on her screen. It came from Oracle's deepest archives, created during the battle itself. The security classification was the highest possible. Final message from Fleet Admiral Marcus Cole, Helen read aloud. To whoever finds this, the Kreth swarm evolved beyond our predictions. They learned to copy our technology. They learned to think like us. They became like us. We brought them here to Earth for a final battle. By the time you read this, the swarm will be destroyed, and so will we. The Empire ends today, but humanity survives. We activated Protocol Omega. Earth is sealed and hidden from all sensors. Automatic defense systems will protect it for the next 20,000 years. Our descendants will have a chance to start fresh. They can build something better than what we created. To the Guardians who may return, we did not fail. We chose to sacrifice ourselves rather than surrender. Protect them. Protect Earth. Let humanity rise again. Helen closed the file. Tears burned in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. The old empire hadn't collapsed from weakness or internal problems. They had made the ultimate sacrifice. They had drawn an unstoppable enemy to Earth and fought a battle they knew they couldn't survive. All to give humanity a future. Ma'am, we're receiving another transmission from the Council fleet, Chris said softly. Ambassador Theltalk wants to speak with you privately. Helen took a moment to compose herself. Then she accepted the communication. The Viridian ambassador appeared on her screen. He looked worried. Captain Cross, I have accessed classified council records, he said. Files that have been sealed for thousands of years. I know what happened in your solar system. I know why Earth was placed in quarantine. Then you know we're not the monsters your council feared. Yes, and I know something else that will concern you. The particle signatures your ship detected. We've seen them before. 3 times in the last 2,000 years. Council worlds have been attacked by an unknown force. The attacks were brief and devastating. Then the enemy disappeared. Each time we found traces of the same exotic particles present in your solar system. Helen leaned forward. The Kreth swarm, you're saying they survived. We don't know what to call them. But yes, something survived. Something that appears every few centuries, destroys everything, and then vanishes. The Council has been searching for them for generations. Theltalk paused. Captain, we need your help. Whatever destroyed your empire is still out there. We're not strong enough to stop it alone. Helen felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders again. Her crew had been in stasis for 20,000 years. They had missed the fall of their civilization. They had slept through the rise of the Galactic Council. And now they were being asked to fight the same enemy that had destroyed everything they knew. I need to discuss this with my crew, she said. And with Earth's leaders. This isn't just my decision to make. I understand. But Captain, time may not be on our side. If the enemy knows that Earth has emerged from quarantine, they may come back. And soon. The transmission ended. Helen sat alone in her command chair, thinking about everything that had happened. She had been a military officer in the old empire. She had followed orders and fought battles. The chain of command had been clear, but now there was no empire. No chain of command. No orders from above. She had to make decisions that would affect billions of people, both human and alien. It was a responsibility she had never wanted. Oracle, gather all senior officers in the conference room. We need to talk. 20 minutes later, Helen stood before her command crew. These were the people who had served with her for years before the stasis. They were the only family she had left. You've all heard the ambassador's message, she began. The enemy that destroyed the old empire is still active. They've attacked council worlds. They're still out there, and they're still dangerous. What are we going to do? Asked Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the ship's tactical officer. She was small and quiet, but one of the smartest people Helen had ever met. That's what we need to decide together. We have several options. First, we could leave, take Defiant and go exploring. find a quiet corner of the galaxy and try to rebuild our lives. Second, we could stay here and defend Earth, ignore the Council and focus only on protecting our homeworld. Third, we could join forces with the Council and help them fight the enemy. What do you think we should do? Chris asked. Helen was quiet for a moment. I think we should stay. I think we should help Earth and the Council, not because we owe them anything, but because it's the right thing to do. The old empire made a lot of mistakes. They conquered when they should have cooperated. They took when they should have given. They ruled through fear instead of respect. Maybe we can do better. We're soldiers, not diplomats, Sarah said. We know how to fight. We don't know how to build peace. Then we'll learn, Helen replied. The old empire had 20,000 years to get it wrong. Maybe we can use that knowledge to get it right. The crew voted. It was unanimous. They would stay. They would help. On Earth, the debate finally reached a conclusion. After 5 days of discussion, argument, and negotiation, the world's leaders made their decision. They would accept help from Captain Cross. They would open diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. Humanity would step out of isolation and join the larger galactic community. But they would do it on their own terms. Earth would maintain its independence. They would share technology and knowledge, but they would not become subjects of the Council or servants of anyone else. Jake Morrison received the orders at Lunar Station Artemis. He was to coordinate with Captain Cross and prepare Earth's defense forces for possible combat. The news report suggested this was just a precaution, but Jake knew better. The threat was real. He opened a communication channel to Defiant. Helen's face appeared on his screen. Captain Cross, I've been ordered to work with you on Earth's defense. I have to be honest, I'm not sure what I can contribute. Your ship is more powerful than our entire fleet combined. Helen smiled. Commander Morrison, you'd be surprised what determination and courage can accomplish. Your people have something we lost a long time ago. Fresh perspective. The old empire became arrogant. They thought their technology made them invincible. It didn't. Maybe working together we can avoid making the same mistakes. I hope you're right. When do we start? Immediately. I'm sending you tactical data from the old empire's final battle. Study it, learn from it, and Commander, prepare your people for the possibility that we might have to fight soon. The enemy knows where Earth is. They've known for 20,000 years. Now that the quarantine is lifted, they might come back. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How much time do we have? I don't know. Could be years. Could be weeks. But we need to be ready. Ambassador Theltok called another council meeting. This time, the discussion was different. Instead of arguing about what to do with Earth, they were discussing how to work with humanity. The humans have agreed to share information about the old empire, Theltok explained. Captain Cross is providing us with historical records, technical data, and tactical analysis. In return, we're sharing our own research about the enemy attacks. Can we trust them? Asked Counselor Vexnar. The old empire was not known for its honesty. These are not the same humans who built the old empire, Theltok replied. 3 weeks had passed since Defiant emerged from the shadows. In that time, Earth had changed more than it had in the previous 100 years. The revelation that humanity was not alone, that they had once ruled the stars, and that ancient enemies still lurked in the darkness had transformed everything. Jake Morrison stood in a briefing room on Lunar Station Artemis, surrounded by military officers from 12 different nations. On the main screen, Captain Helen Cross was explaining tactical concepts that seemed like science fiction to most of the people in the room. The key to fighting dimensional weapons is understanding that they don't just destroy matter, Helen said. They remove it from existence entirely. There's no debris, no radiation signature, nothing. One moment a ship is there, the next moment it simply isn't. The only defense is to avoid getting hit. That's not very helpful, commented Commander Lisa Hayes from the European Space Defense Force. How do we avoid weapons that travel faster than light? You don't, Helen replied bluntly. That's why the old empire developed predictive algorithms. The computer calculates where the enemy will fire before they fire. It's not perfect, but it gives you a few seconds of warning, enough time to move if you're fast. Do we have access to these algorithms? Jake asked. I'm transmitting them to your fleet computers now. But understand, your ships weren't designed for this kind of combat. Your reactors don't have enough power. Your engines can't maneuver quickly enough. Your hulls can't withstand the stress. You'll need major upgrades. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what Helen was saying. Earth's fleet was obsolete. Against the enemy that had destroyed the old empire, they would last seconds. How long would the upgrades take? Lisa asked. Years, maybe decades. We're talking about completely rebuilding your ships from the inside out. We don't have that kind of time, do we? Jake said quietly. Helen's expression was grim. No, we don't. On the Council flagship Harmony, Ambassador Theltok reviewed reports from the Intelligence Division. They had been analyzing the data Captain Cross provided, cross-referencing it with their own records of enemy attacks. The pattern was clear and disturbing. The attacks are getting more frequent, his intelligence chief said. She was a member of the Krell species, insectoid beings known for their analytical minds. 2,000 years ago, the enemy attacked once per century. 1,000 years ago, they attacked twice per century. In the last 500 years, we've recorded 12 attacks. The interval is decreasing. What does that mean? Theltok asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. It means they're getting stronger, building resources, preparing for something bigger, or they were waiting for something, waiting for Earth to emerge from quarantine. The intelligence chief's antennae twitched, a sign of agreement in her species. That's a possibility we must consider. The old empire was destroyed at Earth. Perhaps the enemy has unfinished business there. Theltok felt old and tired. He had lived for 300 years, long even for his species. He had seen the Council grow and prosper. He had helped negotiate peace treaties and resolve conflicts. But this was different. This was a threat that could destroy everything they had built. Increase patrols in the sectors near the Sol system. I want warning if anything unusual approaches Earth. Ambassador, we don't have enough ships to patrol effectively. Our fleet is spread thin across Council space. Then pull ships from less critical areas. Earth must be protected. If we lose Earth, we lose our best chance of defeating this enemy. Aboard Defiant, Helen was having similar concerns. She stood in the ship's war room with her senior officers, looking at star maps that showed Council territory and the locations of previous enemy attacks. They're being strategic, Sarah Kim said, pointing at the map. Each attack has been in a different sector, but look at the pattern. They're hitting worlds on the edge of Council space, testing defenses, learning weaknesses. They're preparing for a major offensive, Chris added. This is exactly what the Kreth Swarm did before they attacked the old empire. Small raids gathering intelligence, then a massive coordinated assault. Helen studied the map. If that's true, where would they attack? What's their primary target? Everyone in the room knew the answer. They just didn't want to say it. Earth, Sarah finally said. Earth is the logical target. It's the symbolic heart of humanity. It's where they were defeated before. And now it's exposed, no longer protected by the automated defense systems. Oracle analysis, Helen commanded. The ship's computer displayed new information on the map. Probability calculations showed potential attack routes. Timelines estimated how long the enemy might take to prepare. Resource assessments calculated how many ships might be involved. The numbers were not encouraging. Based on historical data and current patterns, I estimate a 73% probability of a major attack on the Sol system within the next 6 months, Oracle reported. Estimated enemy force size, 15 to 30 capital ships plus support vessels. Current defensive capabilities, insufficient. Helen felt the weight of command pressing down on her. Defiant was powerful, but it was still just one ship. The Council fleet could provide support, but they lacked experience fighting this kind of enemy, and Earth's fleet was too primitive to make a real difference. We need allies, she said. Are there any other military forces in the region? Species that aren't part of the Council? There are the Korth clans, Chris suggested. Independent warriors. They sell their services to the highest bidder. Mercenaries, Helen said with distaste. Can we trust them? We don't have to trust them. We just have to pay them. And we have one thing they might want. Old Empire technology. Helen considered this. The old Empire's technology was valuable, dangerous, and closely guarded. Trading it to mercenaries was risky, but the alternative was fighting alone. Make contact with the Korth clans. See if they're interested in a contract. On Earth, the public was becoming aware that something serious was happening. News outlets reported increased military activity. Scientists gave interviews about the ancient warship and what it meant for humanity's future. Governments held press conferences, trying to balance honesty with the need to avoid panic. Jake's sister, Emma Morrison, called him from the surface. She was a teacher living a normal life in a small town. She didn't understand military matters, but she could read her brother's tone of voice. "Jake, what's going on?" "People are scared. They're saying there might be a war." "There might be," Jake admitted. He had never lied to his sister. "We're preparing for the possibility. Can we win?" Jake thought about the briefings he had attended, the tactical assessments, the probability calculations. "I don't know, Emma, we're going to try." "That's not very reassuring, I know. But it's the truth. Listen, if things get bad, if we tell people to evacuate the cities, you need to listen. Don't wait. Don't think it's just a drill. Get yourself and your students to safety. You're really scaring me now." "Good. You should be scared, but not hopeless. We have Captain Cross, we have her ship, we have the Council fleet, and we have something the enemy doesn't expect. Modern Earth's creativity and determination. That counts for something." After the call ended, Jake sat in his quarters looking at old photos on his tablet. Pictures of Earth, of his family, of the life he might never get back to. He thought about all the people down there, living their lives unaware of how close they might be to disaster. He had joined the Defense Force because he wanted to protect people. Now he was about to find out if he was good enough to do that. Helen received a response from the Korth clans faster than expected. They were interested. Very interested. They wanted to meet in neutral space to discuss terms. "It's a trap," Chris said immediately. "The Korth don't negotiate in neutral space. They negotiate from positions of strength." "Maybe they're more scared than we thought," Sarah suggested. "If they know about the coming attack, they might be desperate for allies too." Helen made her decision. "I'll go. Take a shuttle, minimal crew. If it's a trap, Defiant can come get us." "You shouldn't go personally," Chris protested. "Send someone else." "Who?" "Everyone on this ship is important. We can't afford to lose anyone. Besides, the Korth respect strength. If I send a subordinate, they'll see it as weakness." The meeting took place 2 days later on a Korth trading station near the edge of Council space. Helen arrived with only 3 crew members, all armed but trying not to look threatening. The Korth leader was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick armor plating and 6 arms. His name was Grook, and he was surprisingly intelligent despite his brutal appearance. "Captain Cross," he rumbled, "we have heard stories about the old empire, about the wars you fought, about the weapons you possessed." "The stories are probably exaggerated," Helen replied carefully. "Are they? Your ship appeared from nowhere and the entire Council fleet trembles. That suggests the stories might be accurate." Grook leaned forward. "We want to help you defend Earth, not because we care about humanity, but because if Earth falls, the enemy will come for the rest of the galaxy next. Better to fight them at Earth with human support than to face them alone later." "What do you want in return?" "Technology, weapons, power systems. Nothing that would threaten the Council, but enough to give us an edge over our competitor." The enemy arrived exactly when Oracle predicted. 3 months after Defiant emerged from hiding, sensors detected massive spatial distortions at the edge of the solar system. Ships were coming. A lot of ships. Jake Morrison was on the bridge of his cruiser, the Liberty, when the alert came through. Around him, his crew worked quickly and quietly, each person focused on their assigned task. They had trained for this moment, but training was different from reality. "All ships, this is Commander Morrison. Battle stations, this is not a drill." 20 Council warships moved into defensive formation. 10 Korth mercenary vessels took up positions on the flanks. Earth's small fleet, 3 cruisers and 12 frigates, formed a reserve line closer to the planet. And Defiant sat at the center of everything, dark and silent and deadly. Helen stood on her bridge watching the tactical display. 15 enemy ships had appeared. No, 16, 17, the numbers kept climbing. Each vessel was different. A nightmare combination of technologies stolen from dozens of species. They had the organic curves of the original Kreth swarm, but twisted and corrupted with weapons and systems that should never have been combined. "Captain, I'm detecting old Empire identification codes in their transmissions," Oracle reported. "They're using our own signals. Ignore them. They're wearing the faces of the dead." "It means nothing." Helen gripped her command chair. "All ships, weapons free. Show them what happens when they threaten Earth." The battle began with Defiant's first shot. A dimensional cannon fired, and one of the enemy ships simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris. It was there, and then it wasn't. The enemy responded immediately. Hundreds of weapons fired at once, targeting every human and council ship in range. Energy beams, missiles, and stranger weapons that warped space itself filled the void between ships. Jake's cruiser shook as enemy fire struck their shields. Alarms blared. Damage reports came in from all sections. Return fire. All weapons! Liberty's missiles launched, streaking toward the nearest enemy vessel. Most were intercepted by defensive systems, but a few got through, causing minor damage to the alien ship's hull. "It's not enough," his tactical officer said. "Our weapons are barely scratching them." "Then we aim for weak points. Target their sensor arrays, their weapon ports, anything that looks vulnerable. We don't need to destroy them, just slow them down." The Council fleet was taking heavy damage. 2 ships had already been destroyed, their crews lost in seconds. But they held their formation, providing covering fire for the smaller Earth vessels. The Korth mercenaries fought like demons. Their ships were fast and aggressive, darting in close to the enemy and then retreating before they could be targeted. It was risky but effective. They were drawing fire away from the less maneuverable Council ships, and Defiant was a force of nature. Every weapon on the ancient warship fired with precision. Dimensional cannons erased enemy vessels from existence. Energy beams cut through shields and armor like they were paper. Missile salvos overwhelmed defensive systems. In the first 10 minutes of battle, Defiant destroyed 5 enemy ships single-handedly. But the enemy was learning. They stopped attacking individually and started coordinating their fire. 3 ships targeted Defiant simultaneously, hitting the same section of shields with enough force to overload them temporarily. "Shields at 40%, Sarah reported. "We're taking damage. Redirect power from non-essential systems. Keep those shields up." Helen studied the tactical display. The enemy was adapting faster than expected. They were using the same tactics the old Empire had used against the Kreth swarm thousands of years ago, because they had absorbed old Empire ships. They had studied human tactics. They knew how humans fought. Oracle Run Combat Algorithm Variation 7, make us unpredictable, acknowledged, implementing random tactical deviations. Defiant began to move erratically, changing speed and direction without warning. It made them harder to hit, but it also made coordinating with the Allied fleet more difficult. Jake watched as another Council ship exploded, its reactor going critical. The crew never had a chance to evacuate. 30 seconds later, one of the Korth vessels took a direct hit and broke apart. "How many have we lost?" he asked. 4 Council ships destroyed. 1 Korth ship destroyed. 2 Earth frigates heavily damaged and withdrawing. His tactical officer paused. "Sir, we've destroyed 7 enemy ships. But they keep coming. There are still 13 of them and we're down to 26 ships total." The math was brutal. They were losing. Helen saw the same numbers on her display. "We need to change the game." "Oracle, what's the status of the emergency weapon systems?" "Online but untested. The singularity generator has not been activated in over 20,000 years. There is a 32% chance of catastrophic failure. And what happens if we don't use it? Probability of defeat rises to 94% within the next hour." Helen made the decision that every commander dreaded. She would risk everything on a weapon that might not work. "Activate the singularity generator. Target the enemy fleet's center of mass." Chris looked at her with shock. "Ma'am, that weapon will create a temporary black hole. It could destabilize the entire solar system if something goes wrong. If we don't use it, Earth falls. I'll take the risk. Activate it now." Deep in Defiant's core, systems that had been dormant for millennia came to life. The singularity generator was the old Empire's ultimate weapon, developed near the end of the war with the Kreth swarm. It created a miniature black hole that lasted only seconds. But those seconds were enough to trap anything nearby in crushing gravitational forces. It had only been used 3 times in history. Each time it had turned the tide of battle. But it had also killed thousands of Allied ships that got too close. "All Allied vessels, this is Captain Cross. Emergency order. Retreat to minimum safe distance immediately. Mark coordinates in your computers. Move now." The Allied fleet began to pull back. Some ships were too damaged to move quickly. Others were engaged with enemy vessels and couldn't disengage. But most made it to safety before the weapon fired. The singularity generator released its payload. In the space between Earth and the enemy fleet, reality twisted. A point of absolute darkness appeared, smaller than an atom but infinitely dense. Space-time warped around it, pulling everything nearby toward the center. 3 enemy ships were caught in the initial formation. They stretched like taffy, their hulls buckling and cracking as they were pulled into the singularity. 2 more tried to escape but couldn't fight the gravitational pull. Their engines overloaded, and they tumbled backward into the darkness. The singularity lasted 7 seconds. When it collapsed, 5 enemy ships were gone. Simply gone. No debris, no trace. The black hole had consumed them completely. The remaining enemy ships hesitated. For the first time in the battle, they showed something like fear. They had been attacking with confidence, sure of their superiority. Now they had seen a weapon that could erase them from existence with no defense possible. "Press the advantage," Helen ordered. "All ships attack now while they're disorganized." Defiant surged forward, followed by the battered but determined Allied fleet. They fired everything they had, missiles and energy beams and weapons that even Jake didn't recognize. The enemy tried to regroup, but they were too slow. Too damaged, too shocked. Another enemy ship exploded, then another. The Korth mercenaries, sensing victory, attacked with renewed fury. They rammed one of the enemy vessels, sacrificing their own ship but taking the enemy with them. Jake's cruiser targeted the enemy flagship, the largest of the remaining ships. "All weapons concentrate fire on that target. Don't let it escape." Liberty's missiles and energy beams joined fire from 2 council ships in Defiant. The enemy flagship's shields collapsed. Its hull cracked open. Atmosphere vented into space. And then its reactor detonated, destroying the ship in a brilliant flash of light. With their command ship gone, the remaining enemy vessels broke formation. They turned and ran, jumping to faster-than-light speeds and disappearing into the darkness. The battle was over. The defenders had won, but the cost had been terrible. Helen stood alone on Defiance Bridge reading the casualty reports. 7 council ships destroyed, 1,100 crew members dead, 3 Korth vessels lost, 200 mercenaries dead, 1 Earth frigate destroyed with all hands, 54 humans who would never go home, and Defiant itself had taken damage. Not critical, but significant. It would take weeks to repair. "We won," Chris said, joining her. He looked exhausted. "They all did. Yes, we won." Helen's voice was flat. "But we can't do this again. We barely survived this time. If they come back with more ships, we'll lose. Then we need to find their base. End this before they can regroup." Easier said than done. The old empire searched for the Kreth Swarm's homeworld for decades. They never found it. "Maybe we'll be luckier." Helen smiled sadly. "Maybe. On Earth, 8 billion people celebrated." They didn't know how close they had come to annihilation. They didn't understand that the victory was temporary. They just knew that the alien threat had been defeated, that their world was safe, that humanity's protectors had succeeded. Jake received a message from his sister Emma. She was crying, but they were tears of relief. "You did it. You saved us all." He didn't correct her. He didn't explain that they had just